Tim, hello.
Hello.
Long time no see.
That's true. Too many meetings exactly in those Monday slots. Hey, Arturo.
Hello.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, Arturo.
Yeah, I managed this meeting to squeeze between other things, that I have. So
All good. I'm the least important person on this call. So yeah.
okay, I think that we can start maybe because it's 1 minute past. So one thing, that I think we are kind of failing is that we define different DRIs for the exit criteria. And I was expecting, that for each exit type criteria, we get an update. At the moment, there is my update here at the top. So we are I'm working with Boyan to create like learning paths and content to contribute to the API. So I updated how we are with this exit criteria to 20%. So we already reviewed the existing content that we have. And we also reviewed the competitors and we get a lot of ideas. And the next thing for us is we are going to create a new page that is going to be kind of overview with all the information and all the links that we have for the API. And then we are going to create different small issues for things that we see in the docs that we can improve. And yeah, I think that probably in 2 weeks we can make a lot of progress here as well. And more or less it's clear for us what we have to do now here. And the only thing is maybe missing content. Maybe I have to catch up with other team members, but in general it's looking good. Any other update, Boyan, from you?
Nothing to add from my side. You had pretty clear.
Yeah, so I have two exit criteria items assigned to me. One is to find the vision of the GitLab API for the future years. So it's pretty comprehensive and depends on a lot of the other work that we're doing. So I'm leaving that at 10%. The other one I'm working on more tactically right now is refresh personas to account for users of our APIs. And so that's kind of my update here, is that we now have a UX research issue. And we've done a number of surveys previously that kind of feed into this, but this is going to be really narrowly focused on any kind of updates to our existing personas, maybe adding some content about how they interact with their APIs. Yeah, and any questions kind of really related to the API personas. So if there are any thoughts from the team here on the call or after the fact, you can go into that issue. It'd be great to kind of get input if there are questions or topics you'd like to make sure that we're covering in that process. I think that'll pair what we learned through this process will pair really well with the kind of external API survey we did in the past and the internal survey that I'm kind of working through as well. I still need to kind of synthesize and share some feedback from that. So yeah, if you have any thoughts on questions we should be asking around API personas, please let me know. Any thoughts while we're on the call today?
So do you see that we are going to have, compared to the personas that we already have, do we need to create new personas, or is something, because this is very concrete to the API, right? So for example, let's say other people is using CLI tools for example, probably you don't create a different persona for that, you know. So do you see room for creating new personas here, or is just I don't remember the name, like kind of developer persona, or like or do you see that
Like
we
a
need?
Sasha or
Yeah,
Devin. Yeah, I think that this will accent our existing personas. I've noticed in some of the personas that we have today that, you know, we'll talk about tools, for example, tools that these types of personas are also using for to do their day-to-day work. To me, I think that's kind of like accenting the persona to explain kind of what is relevant in terms of integrations. So that's interesting input from an integration standpoint. I see something similar happening from an API standpoint. There could be a case. I think one thing that maybe isn't captured today is the use case of the partner. So, you know, if there are third parties that want to leverage their APIs to build integrations, or if we have the third party maintainer, you know, maintaining a library or an SDK. I don't think that's really captured in personas today. So that could be something. I'm not sure, you know, how we'd want to treat it, but I think that through this process, you know, we can really narrow down the types of personas we're seeing and see how they overlay on top of what we have today. I don't know what the next step would be if we needed. I think if we needed to add personas, there's kind of a rigid process today for how we're supposed to approach that. So I wonder if there's kind of like a subset somewhere we can reference these, at least internally, as we move forward to start, you know, as a starting point. But open to input on that as well. You have any thoughts on that, Tim, since you happened to drop in today?
No, I'm just reading through the personas, but nothing specific that comes immediately to my mind.
Okay, yeah, no worries. All right, thanks. I guess we can move on to the next point. I can voice over for Katie. She's not on the call today. She wanted to leave us an FYI. So she created an issue for the docs epic to think about things that we'll need for automated API docs, such as special formatting, so that we can keep parity with the handcrafted docs. So Axel and Evan have been helping with input. No action is needed from anyone here today, but hoping this will help guide future iterations for API docs automation. So yeah, that's awesome. I really appreciate you, Katie, for taking the lead on that. Keep us posted. Oh, I have the next item as well. So I didn't want to forget this. We had a discussion, and I can pull in the Slack thread link as well here once I find it. But we were discussing there's interest from the maintainer of the GitLab library for GitLab to take ownership of this from an integrations team standpoint. And I think from API working group standpoint, we've been, at least myself, been a little bit hesitant based on capacity to do this in the immediate term, short term. But I would like to see a gradual process to where we can start to get involved. I know in this particular case, the maintainer is no longer using Go GitLab themselves. It's a bit of a challenge to support and maintain. So in the Slack thread, we talked about maybe having some kind of model of getting GitLab a little bit more involved, bringing maintainers into the repo, maybe getting a little bit more familiar as a starting point. I think that would be you know, a pretty good fit. So definitely open to feedback on that.
Yeah, I think it's always the tough one because everyone will expect more if we as an organization are taking care of stuff compared to a lone person who is doing a small mini library. So if we are moving forward with this and if we are deciding to do this, Kai is for sure, I would say, the best candidate to talk to because he has done this for the VS Code plugin back then and the CLI. And so he knows about all the different hops and hoops you need to go through with legal and stuff like that. So just as a
good point. Yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind. I did speak to Kai sometime back, just at that time, I was thinking of it more in terms of like, what do we need to validate before we, we take something on like this, and not really considering, more of a middle ground of just like getting more familiar rather than fully taking on ownership. So yeah, if there are some legal implications, I can definitely explore, kind of what that gradual process looks like. Yeah, good point.
So I have a question about the general strategy that we want to take here at GitLab, because supporting different libraries could be a lot of work, and supporting this one with Go, I mean, could be a good idea, but are we planning to support another for Ruby, another for, main languages? So the thing that I see is like, if we take a strategy that is like, okay, let's go and GitLab is officially supporting the main languages, or let's say 5 languages, it makes sense as the company, like, okay, we are taking care of this and we have people, like maintaining those things. But if not, if we are not, for different reasons, we cannot do that, I don't think we have to support one concrete project, because probably we don't have the capacity, and if it's only one thing, it's going to be kind of weird as well, right? Like, why this and not this other language? So yeah, so in general, I think that we have to take more like up-level decision, before going to concrete things in this case. This is my opinion at the moment.
Yeah, and I was definitely taking that position previously. I think the difference in this case is that there's quite a large amount of usage today that is driven through Go GitLab in terms of our API usage. And the fact that in this case, there's only a single maintainer, and for whatever reason, they've been unwilling to allow others to take ownership in terms of being a maintainer, like collaborating as maintainers. So he's kind of been covering it entirely by himself, and he no longer needs it or uses it today. So I don't know about the long-term ownership piece. I think a starting point is that it would be helpful to get familiar with it, have GitLab maintainers supporting without necessarily owning, and being able to kind of fill the pain that third-party maintainers may feel when using our APIs. So it's definitely a way to get some exposure, and definitely we'd want to set expectations that this isn't necessarily something we're trying to do at scale today, to support multiple languages for multiple libraries and SDKs. I think that this would be a pretty limited scope. And again, I don't know about, I think rather than committing to ownership, it would be more so short-term, getting access as maintainers, reviewing what's there and providing guidance, rather than committing to a set capacity and owning it long-term, at least for now. So that's where my head's at right now, is like, is there a middle ground to where we can start to get some exposure here? And maybe there's a better, smaller step with fewer implications. So that's definitely something I'm open to. We could also just, start without maintainership, just reviewing what's there and getting more familiar. So maybe that's maybe an even more tangible small step we could take.
So
does that help answer your question, Arturo?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the point, like to have more like closer relationship, not maybe be maintainers of those tools. But another thing is that also we need to find the right people in the company, because this is Go, and we have some people in the company, but in integrations, for example, we don't have any. I think we don't have any engineer that they are like an expert on Go. So so for example, if I have to make a commitment here, like, are we going to be able to support this external library? from integrations, I would say we are not going to be able, because we don't have the skills right now. Maybe we can give some feedback or contribute to smaller things, but at the end, if we are not experts, it's also take us time, to skill up as well. So yeah, so we also have to find the right people in the company also to give that support.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Would it make sense to create an issue exploring, this kind of short-term step? Because I know we have a few issues that are talking about owning and maintaining the entire library from a GitLab perspective, but maybe we could create an issue and see if we can identify those folks in GitLab who would be interested, because I know there's interest. I know there are people that would like to do this already. So I don't know, maybe we could at least explore that through an issue. Would that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And there is also a Slack channel Golang, so you can also ask, in order to distribute that issue, probably this is the place to go.
Okay, cool. I will create an issue. I'll take that action, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, next point. I have the next point that I've been thinking about this, and basically, today we have Tim here, so I'm going to give a little bit more of context, but basically, you can see we are missing a lot of people from the initial working group. Today is especially, normally we have more people like Alex, Andy, but Fabio as well, but today is especially low, but basically we were not making progress as much as we want on the group. And at some point we define different DRIs for each exit criteria. So that way it's like, okay, I expect each DRI is going to maybe make progress on that, or coordinate with others in order to make progress, or even maybe just refine issues, but every 2 weeks I want to see some progress. And in my case, for example, I was not contributing that much. I was facilitating, but now I'm the DRI of one issue, that is the learning paths and content today to contribute to the API. And now every 2 weeks I'm making sure that I'm making progress, and the question they have is an open question here, is like, I'm thinking, okay, the moment that maybe we finish this, maybe I don't know, in 2 months, because there are like Christmas time and things, in 2 months, maybe I can complete this exit criteria and jump into another thing with Boyan, because Boyan is helping me here. So I'm thinking, okay, what happens if we go not that in parallel, but we try to go more as a group? It's exit criteria after exit criteria. We go and say, okay, we have to improve the documentation. Let's work everyone, together on the documentation, and maybe people is more focused on that rather than work more in parallel, because I'm not sure if that is working at the moment, but it's just an idea. I know that we are going to be available, Boyan and I'm going to be available for in a few weeks time, but yeah. So what do you think about this in general?
I will take a look at it. Maybe we can also facilitate it through a specific project, so that we have better organization in detail with assigned issues per person and per stream, so that we have an overview there. But I can definitely see that sometimes it's easier that everyone focuses rather on one topic, gets that done, never thinks about it again, and then we go over to the next topic. I would like to understand a little bit better if we have some sort of waterfall or conditions to proceed in one or the other. And even more, I think it would make sense to rather take on one bigger topic at the same time and do the work across a couple of team members, but that we get the bigger thing done first before we try to tackle everything at the same time. But would love to hear also Grant's and Boyan's input here.
Yeah, I would say in general, I think that makes sense. I think that the challenge has been work like DRIs that are focused on these tasks, like you mentioned, Arturo. I think it's just that we all have day jobs as well. So, you know, when milestone planning comes up for me, you know, that pulls me away from these issues, and the same goes for like various deadlines from the engineering standpoint. So it's definitely understandable. Um, I think the one caveat I see, or maybe it's just in terms of like how we would order the work, is we've been, I think, a little bit stalled in how we want to approach the REST versus GraphQL question, like how we want to simplify the user experience for our developer personas using our APIs, who depend on REST, for example, but reduce maintenance internally in terms of how we manage these two different APIs. And the kind of the cornerstone issue that we've been working against is this REST over GraphQL POC, and the engineering implementation of that, the next steps of that are just mostly blocked because our own team, the integrations team, is what's working. We're the ones working on it primarily, and we have priorities that are kind of taking precedent. So I think, you know, it feels like once we have at least a determination on if that's a workable solution moving forward, yeah, that helps us to kind of figure out where we're going with next steps. If I say that, I think that's one of the main issues. I think the other is considering what falls in like a V4 versus V5 REST API, and the implications between REST and GraphQL there. So those are the big hard questions to answer. It does require some engineering effort, and then from there, I think we want to, you know, really more so have a defined plan. We're not trying to implement everything within the working group, but these are kind of questions that require engineering effort to answer. So yeah, again, I think I'm agreeing with you, and maybe it's just the order in terms of what needs to happen first. It seems like those are the big kind of blocking questions about how the next things fall in place. One last thought that comes to mind is also the automated docs generation. We kind of started to prioritize that because it is low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of value add, a lot of customers asking for this, third-party maintainers asking for this, and then internally we've had the FedRAMP pressure for that. So it's just seemed logical to work on that immediately. But I don't think anything's been driving necessarily the other priority. They're all very well interconnected. So it's been, I think, a bit of a challenging working group in that respect, because these are big, lofty questions we're trying to answer. I think that everyone's been really contributing the best they can. It's just it can be slow going at times. So yeah, I think, Tim, anything you mentioned recommunicating the working group. I think definitely having more cross-functional support would really help here, because it does feel that the integrations team is carrying the burden a bit, and we don't want that. I mean, we do want to when we want to share this with others that are invested in the decisions we're making here.
Yeah, I think that one topic that we definitely could do is also take a look if we basically bundle up a package to say, okay, this is how we envision, and that's the work that's needed to get us to a level of REST over GraphQL. That's the amount of work that we are expecting, and that's the output, that's the benefit that we are getting from this. And that we take this then outside of the working group to say, okay, on a higher level to David and so on, and to Christopher, to go ahead and say, look, we have this engineering bundle, which is not 100% like maintenance or pure engineering work, but it's rather like a mix, especially as this is integration, so that we distribute the burden and or find basically a slot where we say, okay, this is what integrations will be working on, Slack integration. As soon as the first MVC round is done, first version is done, boom, we are going to invest half of the team on this topic. But I think it needs to be in a very clear and precise, okay, that's what we can do, that's what we want to do, and that's the benefit that we can get from it. And I think this might be something really, December is funky, January is funky, but it might be really now the time that we prepare this to have this ready, that we have something actionable for Q1 and say, okay, we are going to execute with integrations team, with integrations plus team X members or just another team and so on. But basically that working group is suggesting a plan forward, and that we really take this on a different level to get this buy-in from others.
Agreed. I mean, I think there's a lot of questions and comments that are coming to mind around that, but I think that is the ultimate goal, is that we have this package to share, that these are our plans, you know, as a result of our work in the working group. And then at that point, you know, we kind of would close out the working group, and maybe there would be some continued discussion or format, but it would no longer be a working group. I think that, you know, some of the core questions we wanted to come away with some answers from POCs before we determine the path forward. So that was the goal first. And then we've also, on the integrations team, updated our direction to focus more on APIs and webhooks and tooling for building integrations, whether you're an internal product team, external customer or partner, that we can help kind of accelerate the process of building integrations and improve the experience of using our APIs. So we are, as a team, wanting to focus our effort more in this area. And we are working on completing some work around Slack, Jira, and ServiceNow before we make that full shift. So, and then the line where we draw that, I think, is still a little bit in flux. And the other thought that comes to mind too is just noting that I have seen an MR and some discussion around a core platform team, I think is the terminology. So kind of understanding the boundaries of that, I think, would be helpful as well, because I know that this is something that we're moving our focus and our direction into, and there might be some shared aspects or some similar aspects to what they're hoping to address. So definitely, I think it helps to have you here, Tim, and have your involvement and support as we kind of figure this out. Because yeah, understanding the shape of that package and aligning with you, I think, would be really meaningful.
Yeah, one thing is I can compare this with other working groups, and the scope of this working group is huge. Compared, like, maybe its exit criteria could be a working group, you know. So just improve the documentation. It's like automating styles, different things could be a working group, you know, that they are working something. Then if you take like every different exit criteria, is like the scope is huge. So I think that we are also struggling with that. But yeah, good points. Yeah, thank you very much.
And one thing I'll share real quick too, as well, Tim. I have an issue trying to hunt down. Well, first I'll share a link to our board, because you were kind of talking about a different project. I think our board is pretty well structured, that is pulling in each of the issues, and we have you know, each of the status or states. So you might want to take a look at that. Oops. And then I do have an issue where we're kind of like, I was trying to start to shape what this package would look like as far as like the proposal, and I'm just having trouble locating it. But I think that would be a good place to start. I think that it was kind of on pause as we're working on some of these POCs and answering some of the big questions about how this should look moving forward. But I think once I find this issue, I think it's a good starting point to get a sense of what we were thinking, and just knowing that it could change. Here it is. We marked it as closed, at least for now.
Cool. Yeah, the board looks great. Thanks for that.
You're welcome. All right, there's the link to the draft. And Arturo, yeah, see you close. We promoted it to Epic. That's why I couldn't see it in that board, because it's an Epic. So I'll update the link. Yeah, if you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to jump into that issue Tim, or feel free to share it. Again, it's a draft. We're still learning and exploring, but I think this kind of summarizes some of what we've been kind of coming away with in this working group.
Good. Then I will put this on my to-do list for this week. And we basically move forward to shape this up. And I will start preparing Christopher and David that we are going to propose like a bundle. And I think that the important part is that we cut some parts away and say, okay, this is perfect work for an integrations team. Anyhow, this is simply prepared and suggested by the working group. And there might be simply something topics where we need additional support from team members of the working group. And this is also something that's what I mentioned, to over communicate again to team members. Whoever is interested, we have a lot of new team members since we started. They might be totally not aware, they might have completely different backgrounds, so that we get more people in, and that we basically say, okay, we don't say we need team X for this from group Y, but rather this individual who is part of the working group and get simply their work for a month to focus 100% on this and get this moving, so that we have this combined effort of people who are really interested, which is always a huge motivation boost, and have already the full insight to this topic. So this is definitely something that I can ask for. And but the better we are prepared in, okay, that's what we get out of it, the higher our success rate will be. But yeah, cool. I will put this on my to-do list to read through and work myself through the items. And then I was following in the Slack channel anyhow. But yes, definitely great that I have now highlighted topics.
Yeah,
Cool.
that would be awesome. And feel free to reach out to me if you want to chat some more, or if you have questions. Happy to chat anytime. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Yeah, see you next time.
Have a good
Thank
week.
you.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
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 Bye.